Oh, and welcome to Take Charge Tuesday. Yeah, it's Tuesday. Let's do it. It's Take Charge Tuesday. I'm going to try not to sing. Like that was literally what my brain was trying to do just there is to sing you a tune. But I'm pretty sure you don't want me to do that. Like y'all don't want me singing. So, hello everyone, and welcome to Take Charge Tuesday. It is great to be here, great to see you, and all of that jazz. I am excited to be here. I am going to turn off my notifications because, goodness gracious, I never have them on, but I went on a trip while I was still working and I had to have on my notifications and I never turned them off. And now I'm like, man, I gotta turn them off again. So anyway, it is good to be here. Good to see you. I'm excited about this week's topic. I'm always excited, but I think there's certain topics that just hit a little bit harder. And with this topic, I feel like it hits harder for a very specific reason. And that is because I myself am maybe not visibly, but absolutely am neurodivergent. And I have some other issues that are happening to me as a function of me getting older. And I am always interested in talking about accessibility. And also that and one of my very first jobs here in Cleveland when I first got here 15 years ago now, or 14 years ago, something like that, was to work at a nonprofit. And one of the nonprofit areas that we worked in was accessibility, specifically accessible housing. But one of the things that I loved about working there was that we had to kind of approach everything from the perspective of accessibility, because usually people have paired issues. And so there'll be one, something that is not, fully functional or whatever about someone's vision or something like that. And then that kind of pairs with something else. And so because I again hate the term disability because there's nothing in particular wrong, but the idea that, these things kind of impairments come together. And when I learned about all this, and I learned about how many people, specifically Americans, at some point are going to be faced with a disability, either temporarily or permanently, the number is high. It's extremely high. Like it's very high. Like I'm not going to throw out a number because don't like it when I do that, but it's a very high number. And because of that, I think that it is really important as marketers for our own businesses that we care about the fact that we ourselves and that other people are going to need to have access. And if we just simply make things more accessible, like if we think about access and just go from there, that we make things more accessible, then that will be very useful. So this week on LinkedIn, which some of you are watching this on LinkedIn, I actually wrote an article, a newsletter all about accessibility. And I didn't just take it from the perspective of accessibility for your website. I also talked about accessibility for your physical location. So if you have a physical location and you have the ability to have some control over that environment, it behooves you to think about how that environment is accessible to people who are going to need to visit it. And one of my favorite ways that this nonprofit that I worked with, which was Maximum Accessible Housing Ohio, one of my favorite ways that they had us think about accessibility was this. If you were pushing a stroller, would this be difficult? Whatever the thing is, like whatever, like baseline, if you were pushing a stroller, would this be difficult? And what I kind of have extrapolated that to in my life is for physical accessibility, if you were pushing a stroller, would this be difficult? And then for digital accessibility, if you were holding a baby, if you had one hand, because if you think about babies in general, they eat up a lot of space. So if you had a hand holding a baby, meaning you only had one hand to navigate, if you had a baby's attention that you were trying to keep, if you had a baby yelling in your ears, if you had that kind of multisensory distraction, even not a disability, just a multisensory distraction, would your website be accessible? Would it be something that someone who had half of their attention, half of their hands, half of their ears, and half of their eyes on, would they be able to understand it. And if they can't, if it's not useful, then you really need to be thinking about how to make it so. So, again, the article that we have is a lot about physical location and the combination thereof, because we've talked about this topic before, and I really want to make sure that we are really honing in on all of the different aspects that all of us have, the abilities that we have to actually make our spaces more accessible. Now, as far as making your website more accessible, there are a few things that we can talk about. And one of them I actually want to talk about that we haven't talked about much when it comes to accessibility is video. Now, y'all know if you've been with me for a while that I am a huge proponent of video. Now, when you hear accessibility and you hear video, you're likely thinking, making sure that you have closed captions. Yes, you should have closed captions if you can. Have captions on everything so that people can actually read your content instead of having to watch it. But what about the idea of having video instead of text for almost anything that someone would need to know on your website? Now, what I mean by that is, let's say you have a set of frequently asked questions on your website. One of the things that I've seen people doing very successfully recently, and that I myself am looking to implement in a website redesign that we're doing right now, is to add in answers that are quick, less than 60-second answers to people's questions in video format. Now, one of the reasons why I like this concept, one of the reasons why I like video for website in general is you can host on YouTube. You can host those videos on YouTube for free. So this is not something that's going to cost you a ton of like physical, like money or anything like that. It's not going to cost you any bandwidth to do because it's hosted and embedded. But that if you look at your frequently asked questions and then you go to verbally answer them, it tends to make your answers more comprehensive, which is really interesting to me. So something that would take you, maybe you or someone else, a good amount of time to write because you're trying to be thoughtful about every word and there's a copywriter involved and all those types of things, or that you simply wouldn't do. Like a lot of people don't have FAQs on their website. Raising my hand because you're thinking, I know what the frequently asked questions are, but like, how do I go about answering them? You kind of have that kind of mental block about it. But if you think about sitting down and answering your frequently asked questions via video, using a really straightforward format like this, where you're sitting in front of a webcam and talking into a screen with a microphone, doing this sort of FAQ answer is really useful to your customer. If it's on YouTube, there's the closed caption option automatically available and you don't have to do anything. Like you don't have to make a separate file and all of that in order to have your closed caption available. So it is there. If they want to use it, they can turn it on. It's YouTube, it's automatic. And if you are answering those questions via YouTube again, or via a video, you have likely answered their question better than if you were simply to write an answer to their question. So this is one way to leverage video as a method of communication. The other thing, if you want to think about neurodivergency, faces, if you simply want to use my analogy of someone holding a baby that is taking a lot of their energy and effort, but they're actually trying still to hear and see and think, one of the best things that video allows is for tone and expression to be clearly seen. So if you are working with someone who is having, an ability, not ability to hear you, or maybe even is neurodivergent and has difficulty understanding what words are being expressed, but are learning to read faces, if you have a face expressing something, it makes it a lot easier for people to understand exactly what you're meaning. And so thinking about video in that way is really useful. And then also, if you have video, so this is the reason why, again, video content, video content, video content. If you have video answering questions, then people who do have visual impairments will easily be able to get the answer and they won't have to have an assistive device reading the website to them. So there's that. And then thirdly, which is just my marketing brain, this is probably even fourth, but my marketing brain wants you to do video because if you have frequently asked questions that you could put on your website, then those videos that you would create to answer those questions that are fully based on the idea of you making your website more accessible is also going to make you create content that is extremely useful to your customers. So now that video that you have created for YouTube, that you created using a webcam or wherever you created it, you can now download that content that was on YouTube or wherever you put it. You can download that content and then put it as a highlight on your Instagram as a frequently asked questions Reels highlight or a stories highlight. And then that way, now anyone who has questions that can be answered in a frequently asked questions format can have them answered via that format easily and makes your life like amazing for them and amazing for you. It is amazing what you can do if you think accessibility first. So thinking this whole thing through as a way of figuring out how to make everything that you're doing more accessible to just people who are distracted, let alone people who actually need it. It is such a huge difference. So we talked about video for the idea of frequently asked question. Now, if you are, I'm just going into 10,000 small businesses. We are moving into the summer cohort. I'm the lead faculty for that program here at Tri-C at Cuyahoga Community College in Northeast Ohio. And one of the things when we first get started with this program, we start talking to our scholars about the idea of writing a value proposition or a something on your website, maybe on each page of your website, that explains the value that that web page has to offer to the customer specifically. Now, what if, as a method of both accessibility and all manner of other things that you can do, you recorded a quick value proposition video for every website, every page on your website? Now, mind you, you might be like, Lindsay, I have hundreds of pages on my website. That's fantastic. Go you. But I mean the ones that are probably the 10 most visited pages on your website. The ones where if someone was immediately hit with an answer to their questions, that would help them guide themselves on the journey to becoming your customer, to help them guide themselves on the journey to purchasing that thing. There are all sorts of really awesome utility that video has, in addition to making your website significantly more accessible. Now, if you have a product-based website, you might be thinking, well, how does this apply for me as a person who has a product? Well, this applies to you because if you have a product-based business, then you can have videos demoing how to use the products on your product pages, especially if you have product categories. So maybe you have a category of products, and on the category page, you don't even need to have it on every single product page because that might seem a little much, right? That might seem a little much, but if you have a category, which is maybe you have a set of products that are aimed at people who love Cuyahoga Valley National Park. Well, on the category page for that set of products that are about Cuyahoga Valley National Park, instead of just having a headline that's like Cuyahoga Valley National Park products, you can have a video talking about the history of the park and how it's relevant to your organization and what the products that you guys have means to the people in the community. Now you have expressed value for that category. You have explained in a way that is extremely useful for accessibility, because now anyone who is coming to your website who is using an assistive device will be able to watch that video or listen to that video. But then also now you potentially have a video or piece of video content that you can use anywhere else that you need to share that same explanation or that you need to share that information. So you want to just be thinking strategically about this, because accessibility is not just about avoiding lawsuits or other kind of negative outcomes. Accessibility is not just about catering to the small population of people who are blind or the small population of people who can't use a computer because of mobility issues. That is not what it's there for. Accessibility is for everyone. And if you think of accessibility as a thing that is for everyone, and then you say, okay, this is for everyone, then how can I make sure that whatever it is I'm doing is going to be useful for everyone? That's how we want to be thinking about accessibility. It's about improving your website and making it useful for everyone, not just for the people who have all of the accessible, all of the things that you think everyone is supposed to have. And I will comment again, because I work with hundreds, probably thousands now of small business owners, how frequently I will run into a small business owner who themselves has accessibility issues, but their website does not even compensate for their own issue. So I want to make sure that we're all thinking about this in a universal fashion. So if you yourself has a challenge, like me, I have my own challenges. Believe me, my website is accessible for me, and I'm making sure that it is more and more accessible every single time we add things to it, making it so that anyone, regardless of their level of access, can still use my website to determine whether or not they want to become my customer. That's it. That's what we need to be doing. Okay. So, with that, if you want some more details, a little bit more information about how to do this for yourself, what are the I got a list here about emails and all sorts of things that you can do. You can either check out the article that is linked on LinkedIn, or you can head over to the workshop that's going to start in approximately 11 minutes, where I am going to be talking about the topic of accessibility. I always say accessibility because that's what I guess that's my Midwestern coming out. But if you want to come and learn more about accessibility and how you can actually create a website that is going to be more accessible to you and everyone else who needs to use your website, head on over to the link that is in the caption, actually, and join us in what is now 10 minutes for that workshop. I am going to head on over and get set up. We're going to be talking about all sorts of things. We're going to be talking about color. We're going to talk about readability. We're going to talk about video and text and all that jazz. So if you are interested in that, oh, wait, I forgot to mention accessibility. All these things also help with your SEO. Oh, wait. I didn't even say that. Oh yeah. So if you're interested in all of that, then come to the workshop. It's completely free, happening right now. Well, in 10 minutes. Let me drop the information into the chat. Here we go. And so if you are interested, I would love to see you minutes over there. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining me. And if you have thought about this or giving this some thought, make sure that you leave whatever you're doing. I want to know what people are doing for accessibility. Leave it in the chat. We want to start a conversation here. Take Charge Tuesday is all about taking charge of your business, of your marketing, because I believe very strongly that small business owners need to have more control over what they're doing, even if you yourself are not executing it, even if you're going to hand this off to a webmaster. I want you to know what it is that you should be looking out for, what it is that you should be instructing someone else to do for you, for your business. So we're going to be talking about that in a few minutes. So head over and hang out with us. Otherwise, read the article, and I will see you all next week on next Take Charge Tuesday. Bye, everyone.